What up, what up, what up, Entourage? Gonna talk about your favorite topic and the topic I hate the most, trades. You guys are just so bad at it. I hate even talking about it, but I care about you guys and I hate seeing all these questions about trades, the wrong questions for the wrong players, so we're gonna put an end to this now. Well, guys, if you're new to the channel, make sure you give it a like, a sub, turn on that bell for notifications as well. If you're interested in my premium content, guys, it's 4 emails a week. It's the waiver wire gems on Tuesdays, trade targets on Wednesdays, rankings on Thursdays, and an updated version of the rankings on Saturday. Well, let's get into it. The do's and don'ts, or I should say, the 5 most common mistakes I see when it comes to trades. Number 1, this drives me nuts. Stop chasing points. Just stop. Stop. A player has a big game. All of a sudden, you want to go after that player. Okay? It's just not worth it. It's not worth it. Why are you going to pay premium prices? The idea of making trades, the reason I call it buy, sell, hold, is to give you a list of players that you could get on the low. But you guys, Robbie Anderson's off to a hot streak, so you're asking me crazy questions like, should I trade DJ Moore for Robbie Anderson or stuff? Guys, you just because you have 3 good games doesn't mean you're better than a player that is just quite frankly better. There's a reason why DJ Moore was a top wide receiver amongst the fantasy community. He was a wide receiver 1 last year. Okay? If you're always going after the next big thing, the next big hit, you're always going to be chasing, which means you're never going to get there, because if you keep going after Will Fuller after he has a big game, guys, it's very likely that Will Fuller playing in a shootout against Minnesota will have a big game. It's very likely Devontae Parker will have a big game. But the key is staying the course. Because if you overpay after a big game and you give up quality players that are going to be more consistent, less injury prone, then you're just setting yourself back, because 2 things happen. You already missed out on that big game. And let's face it, these players only have a certain amount of big games a year, guys. We have this notion in our brains that a player has a 25-point game. We just think it's going to happen. Guys, a wide receiver 1, I believe, averages like 17 points per game, 18 points per game. And that's usually, big games like 25, 30 points, and then low games like 10 points, sometimes even less. And then it just averages out to 17 points. Okay? Only one wide receiver, and I keep repeating this stat over and over and over and over and over again. Only one wide receiver performed as a wide receiver 1 over 50%. So only one was a top 12 receiver in over half his games. And that was Michael Thomas. Okay? So quit with the chasing points. Just stop. Stop. Have some belief in your players. Follow volume. Follow passing offenses. And I'm just referring to receivers right now, since those are usually guys that have these big games and that end up, influencing you guys to go and chase. Okay? The number 2 mistake I see. Stop chasing names, guys. Just stop. You guys going after Julio's injured right now. Calvin Ridley looks to be like the better wide receiver. Julio has trade rumors circulating around him. I've seen trades like, hey, should I trade DJ Moore and David Montgomery for Julio? Okay, just because DJ Moore hasn't, and I keep mentioning DJ Moore's name because his name just came up, but just because DJ Moore hasn't fully exploded yet doesn't mean that all of a sudden there's this wide gap between DJ Moore and Julio Jones, that you're also going to include a running back, one of the hardest positions to get. Just stop with the names. OBJ is facing Dallas. Don't think that all of a sudden, if OBJ has a great game against the worst secondary, arguably, them or Minnesota, maybe Jacksonville, that all of a sudden OBJ is back. OBJ hasn't been relevant in like 3 years, guys. Stop with the chasing names, okay? Deal with the now. Again, follow the volume. OBJ does not get a lot of volume, and he's injury prone. He was already on the injury list this week. Even though he's playing, he's on there, and he's usually on there, and that's a running offense. Same thing with guys like Todd Gurley or Mark Ingram, and this is what people will do. Smart people, and this is what I want you guys to do when it comes to trades. They'll fluff up a nice package. They'll go after one of your names that's not so big, like a Tyler Boyd, even though he's producing like heck. And they'll be like, hey, I'll give you OBJ and Mark Ingram. And then in your head, you're like, wow, OBJ, I would take OBJ by himself because he's OBJ and he did a one-handed catch. And then, oh, Mark Ingram too? The starting running back for the Ravens that was a running back one last year? This is a great deal, and you just got punked. You got punked because Tyler Boyd is going to get consistent targets. He's in a throwing offense that's going to be down a lot. Chemistry's there with the rookie Joe Burrow. Don't fall for the name game. Okay? Third thing, trading for injured players like a Julio. I've gotten so many questions about Michael Thomas. You see, if you're going to trade for an injured player, if you want to take a risk, cool. But the thing that gets me is you guys are not only trading for injured players, you're actually giving maximum value. Like, you're like, okay, Rapper, should I trade Chris Godwin and, I don't know, who's running backs? I don't want to keep saying David Montgomery. But David Montgomery, it's like you're paying maximum value. Like Michael Thomas, there's a world where Chris Godwin could even be better than Michael Thomas. And if he's not better, I don't know how much better. Yes, Michael Thomas had an amazing career year, but it's called a career year for a reason. And he's got a high ankle sprain, and that tends to linger. And guys, these injured players have relapses all the time. It's just not worth the risk. Sometimes you got to give a little bit of that upside away for security. And it's something I preach during the draft as well. I was telling you guys, I couldn't pick Julio at the end of the first or the top of the second when I could get Ridley in the fourth because there's too much risk. He's an older player. Julio's not going to get better at 31. But you know who will? Calvin Ridley. So I'd rather get Ridley in the fourth than Julio at the end of the first or second. And look, that looks pretty good right now. But Julio could have another repeat of last year, finish top 3. But I'm willing to give a little bit of that upside for security of a Calvin Ridley who's younger. And I can get another player in the end of the first, second round. I don't have to rely so much on a 31-year-old receiver. So it's just not worth it, especially when you're talking about injuries like high ankle sprains that even when you're back, you're not completely, back 100%. We saw that with Barkley last year. Hamstrings can pop at any moment. And yes, I even told you guys, look, go after Kenny Golladay. But I said that because at that point, the risk was worth the reward. It didn't seem like too many people were that high on Kenny Golladay, and he had a lot of rest. He's not an older player. He doesn't have a history of missing a lot of games. So I'm not totally against going after injured players. Like right now, Chris Godwin might sit a week or two. But again, that is a mild hamstring strain, okay? It's not a high ankle sprain. So not all injuries are created equal. And that's only if you could get you get them at a decent price. Because besides the fact that these players could get re-injured, they're also missing games. Guys, The regular fantasy football season is only 13 weeks. So two games is crucial, let alone 4 to 6. As much as I love McCaffrey, if his timetable is 4 to 6 weeks, guys, that's almost half the fantasy season, if not a quarter. Unless you're 3-0, you can't afford to give up players that can play for you right now to get somebody that's injured, no matter how good they are. The best ability is availability. Don't forget that. All right? So that was the third thing. So now the other thing that drives me nuts is point swapping, what I call sideway trades. And here's another thing. I tell you guys, look, buy low means buy low. These players are coming off a bad game. It doesn't mean trade for Kenyon Drake at all costs or trade for Joe Mixon. No, if you got a scary owner that thinks Joe Mixon's all of a sudden trash because he hasn't put up points, then yes, take advantage. But if you have an owner that hasn't lost faith in Mixon, is willing to move him for the right price, his right price, which means end of the first Mixon value, no, you got to forego. Because at that point, you're taking on all the risk because Mixon hasn't performed well, Drake hasn't performed well, and you're still paying those prices. Sometimes you got to move on. Okay, I tell you to buy low and see if you could get these players at a discount, but what you guys are doing is you're paying full price and then you're just point swapping. Somebody asked me today, Rapper, because Juju is on my sell list, okay? And just because I put somebody on my sell list, it doesn't mean sell them at all costs. It means they're on a high right now. See if you could get maximum value. I don't think Juju's trash. I don't think you should sell him by all costs. Unlike Gurley. Somebody like that, yeah, okay? Because that's an accident waiting to happen, okay? So he asked me, he's like, Rapper, should I trade Juju and Eckler for, I think it was, or should I trade Juju and Eckler for Mixon and Boyd? Something like that. What's the point? What's the point? Maybe Boyd's a little better than Juju. That's arguable. Maybe Eckler's a little better than Mixon. That's also arguable if Mixon turns it up. Like, no, it's James. I'm sorry. James Robinson and Juju for Eckler and Boyd. That's what it was. What the hell's the point? The point of a trade, okay, is to get, first of all, point of a trade for me is if there's any player on my roster that I don't want, either because I drafted the wrong guys, usually not even because of that. It's usually more so that a guy has underperformed or I thought he was going to do better or something like that, like a Juju. Then I'll try to sell him off for a player that I like. But I don't do trades with players I like for other players I like. That's point swapping. What the hell's the point? Let's see. Rapper told me to go after CEH, so I'm going to give him Jonathan Taylor. Like, what? No. The point is, if you got a Gurley, if you got an OBJ, package them together for a CEH if you can. I'm not saying you could, but if you can. Or even a Mixon. Or even a Drake. You probably could. But trading players I like for other players I like, it defeats the purpose. Unless, you're dealing with smart owners and you really need to address a position. That's different. Like, let's say James Robinson is my fourth running back. And I have no wide receiver one. Okay, I like James Robinson, but I have no wide receiver one. And right now he's on my bench as my fourth running back. Then yeah, I might want to move James Robinson for guess the name, DJ Moore, or you could probably even get more than DJ Moore. Or, you got a scary owner like Chris Godwin, something like that. I'm trying to think of another receiver I would give away or I would give James, or Galladay, or something like that, guys. Okay? Because now it's two players I like, but I'm addressing a hole in my roster, a need. Okay? That's different. But trading the same players that play the same position, It's called sideways trades, point swapping. Don't do it. And it's annoying. All right, my last thing. Don't trade based on schedules, guys. Let me tell you something. Schedules, matchups in general mean nothing. Big players do big things, and everything is contingent on what? Game flow. Okay? And game flow is very hard to predict. The other thing that's very hard to predict, what happened this weekend? Canceled. Pittsburgh, Tennessee, COVID. You don't know what's going to happen, guys. You can't predict the future. There's teams that defenses start like trash, and all of a sudden the second year they turn it up. There's defenses like the 49ers last year that were elite, and then the second half they were trash. Injuries happen. Don't base your trade on a schedule. Fluky things happen during games. There could be a kick return, and then somebody fumbles, and all of a sudden a team's behind, and they got to throw the ball, and you thought that Jonathan Taylor or Derrick Henry was going to have a huge game because this running defense is trash, but now they're down like 14, 21 points, and they got to throw it. It's amateur. It's amateur. So, recap. 5 common mistakes. Don't do them. Stop it right now. Number 1, stop chasing points. Number 2, stop going after brand names. Number 3, stop going after injured players. Number 4, stop swapping points. Number 5, don't make trades based on schedule. Cut the crap, guys. It's time to man up and become professionals. Well, guys, if you want more tips like this, support your boy. Sponsor rapper $1 a month. I'll leave my Patreon account for $9.99 a month for my premium. Also, if you want to do the whole year, it's only $20, so save some money. 4 emails a week. Tuesday, waiver wire gems, free agent finds. Wednesday, buy, sell, hold, my complete list of trade targets. Thursday, you get my rankings before the TNF game, and then an updated version of my rankings on Saturday. If you're interested also, I'm starting some new stuff, some pretty cool stuff, DFS, sports betting in general, so I think it's time for that. A lot of you guys have asked me, and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do a special. I'm gonna hook you guys up because this is kind of like my test group. I did it last year with the DFS. It was only $10 a week. A lot of you guys remember that. And now it's no longer $10 a week. It's $50 a month, $20 a week. I'm going to introduce a weekly package because I was only doing monthly. So take advantage right now while the cost is low. If you're interested in that, I'm going to post some information about that on my Instagram at fantasyfootballrapper. Make sure you follow me on Twitter for all the breaking news at IamFFRapper. And if you're interested in any one of my products, my services, email me fantasyfootballrapper@gmail.com. Until next time, peace. We out.